Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developer Productivity Engineering Showdown, DPE Showdown, as we like to call it, sponsored by my employer, Gradle. We have a great show today. Our first showdown of the year, actually. We've been kind of slacking off. We need to get it going. Real quick on why we're here. During the pandemic, we thought we'd do something interesting and fun to get you some developer productivity engineering knowledge from the experts in a fun game show style way. How it's going to work is we're going to have around 7 to 8 topics. Each panelist is going to go through each topic. And at the end, we're going to ask you, the audience, to vote via Zoom polling mechanism. And then the winner gets a point, and the winner at the end gets their 15 seconds of fame to have fun with it. Super excited about the folks joining today. We got Danny, who works on the Delta Airlines Android app, the front end app, everything. He's all things tools and builds and tests. I met him a while back when he was working on some of this, and we helped troubleshoot some of his Gradle builds, and it's pretty well optimized. So he knows a lot in that space. I met Emma from the Chase Android app at DroidCon in London this last year. Really enjoyed her talk. If you use the Chase Android app outside of the US, you're probably using something that her team built. And of course, my old pal Heath here from Twitch. We've been working together for a long time now. He's the Gradle build tools test guru over at Twitch. And Josh works on developer productivity on mobile at the Kaiser Permanente app. If you ever use this super complex app, his team is working on it. And that's who we have today. Let's jump in. We got a nice softball question for the first topic here, which is, hey, your favorite Android development productivity hack and why? Looking for stuff that you all use on a day-to-day basis to kind of boost productivity. Danny, you're up first. What do you have? What do you do?
Well, for the last couple of years, what I've been doing with it is having all three of the different IDEs on my machine at a given point in time to go back and forth. Normally, if the bug is in there and people are experiencing, seeing if it's still happening in what's on the beta channel and canary channel, and then also looking forward to features that are coming down the pipeline that'll definitely help people later on. One example is AGP 7.2 comes in with the Gradle managed devices and trying to see if that's really going to help out the team with having consistent and stable runs for their integration tests.
Boom, right in 30 seconds as well. Emma, what do you have? What do you do?
Well, my favorite hack is to use don't keep activities developer setting on in order to find and fix bugs, because it can simulate the case that Android will kill an activity in the background due to memory pressure, such as on a lower end device. That's where your app activity is destroyed within 1 second of backgrounding the app. And we use it because it's a fast way of checking the code for bugs. You take note of the crashes or behavioral issues that happen once you reopen the app after you left it in the background to interact with other apps. And you might even notice that the process gets destroyed. And also your view models might not hold the data anymore.
Great. Heath, what do you do that you want to share with the community?
Yeah, I pull from mainline and start a new build locally every morning before checking email and Slack, and then that runs while I'm checking email and Slack. And I rebase my active branches against main afterwards, and this improves my build speeds throughout the day by getting my local caches up to date. This has bigger benefits if your app is modularized because you're more likely to have cacheable binaries. And then once you have a modularized application like we do, then I try to create a custom app with only the subset of modules that I need to work on. And that way I can I can only build and run the stuff that I really need to use.
Love it. Josh, to wrap it up.
Absolutely. For me, I'm not sure if it's so much of a hack, but keyboard shortcuts and mastering those, that is certainly the biggest benefit for me. My favorite is Shift-Shift. You can find anything with that. Command-Shift-B to go into the implementation of some particular piece of code. But I guess if I think about it, Android Studio's got really good over time. There's actually a lot of really good tools in there. And the other thing that I really like is if you master the basics of Git with your rebase and you can work on 2 different branches while you're waiting for a code review, that always helps a lot.
All amazing answers. I really love this one. Audience, your turn to vote for who do you think gave an answer that you learned the most from?
I'm doing this acapella.
All right, here we go. Let's see the results. Who did the audience like? Ooh, this is a close one. Heath with the first point. Nice one, Heath. All right. But the second question, something that we talk about a lot here in the Gradle land and the Gradle Enterprise land, flaky tests, right? Do you have any tools around? You got to find them first and detect them, and then figure out how to deal with them afterwards, right? What do you do there? What tools do you have? Josh, you're up first.
Sure thing. So for us at the moment, we don't actually have any flaky tests. And I think that's really because we invested a bunch of time at the very beginning making sure our architecture was good. So everything is marked and injected in constructed parameters, and that reduces our use of singletons, which we found that to be the main reason that anything was flaky in the first place. So architecture, I think, is the best answer.
Nice. So catching it in advance before it even gets there. Got it. All right. Next up, Heath. How do you guys deal with this at Twitch? What tools do you have?
Yeah, so we rerun our tests up to 3 times if they fail. We only run UI tests within the same package as a diff of a PR. So a flaky test only affects diffs within its own package. And for correctness, we run our full test suite nightly on emulators, on an EC2 bare metal instance, as well as in AWS Device Farm. Our most common flaky tests are associated with sharing test accounts of other shared test or other shared test infra. And as we discover those conflicts, we generally create separate test accounts and infra to make our test setup and teardown smarter.
Nice. Very good answer. Emma, what do you all do?
Well, first of all, we do not like flaky tests. It doesn't matter if it's the code base or the test case that is flaky. It needs to be resolved, and the longer we leave it, the more problematic it will get. Depending on the case, we create tech debt to assess the correctitude of the test suite, or we fix it on the spot if it needs urgent attention. Sometimes we also run each change test a few times, like 3-4 times after instrumenting for code coverage. We calculate the coverage delta between each run, and that can warn us of potential for flakiness in the future.
Awesome. And Danny, to wrap it up.
On our side, most oftentimes we find the biggest culprit for flaky tests are people trying to take shortcuts with tests by trying to create like test rules that are God rules over everything else, or watchers that do the same sort of thing, or just trying to incorrectly try and clear things up before and after a test goes out, and not letting the system itself actually do what is intended to do. Outside of that, just not treating observables how they should be treated, but just kind of just thinking you just go ahead and observe and subscribe.
Love it. Great answers all around. Let's see, audience, whose answer did you like the most that you learned something new from?
I'm doing this acapella.
All right, here is the drum roll. It's so close. I can't even see. I got to like zoom in to see. Oh, Emma. Nice. You got it. Great answer. Now for the next one. This is, basically my day job on a day-to-day basis. Best tips to boost build speed. I'm sure many of you guys have a lot of experience in this. First up, Heath. He's a pro at this. What do you got, Heath? Your best tip.
Yeah, products only grow bigger over time, so modularize builds to minimize the blast radius of changes. So for our example, we used to have a module full of highly interconnected generated GQL code, and any changes to this module required a 3-minute rebuild and blocked the rest of our app from building. So we created a separate public API module containing interfaces for our GQL APIs. And this allowed us to decouple our modules consuming the APIs from the modules building the generated GQL implementations. And then we later used Apollo's multi-module support to parallelize building our generated GQL implementations, further reducing the blast radius of changes.
I told you all this guy was a pro. All right, Emma, what about you? What do you have?
Well, most commonly, we profile the build. We profile how long Gradle takes to execute each phase of the build lifecycle and each build task. So we spot bottlenecks and potentially create tasks for custom build logic and see which ones can actually run in parallel. Another one would be that we use always static dependency versions and not dynamic versions, because those can add unexpected version updates. And that can also generate slower builds caused by Gradle checking for updates, because by default, Gradle caches for 24 hours.
Danny, what about you?
For us, it's all about optimizing for what we're actually building on. Our current environment that we're moving to is using M1 machines, so everything has been optimized for that, such as moving off of your normal JDKs and over to Liberica to get x64 support. On top of that, you have your caches enabled and things of that nature. And one of the ones that I had to prove out to everyone was reducing the number of agents you're using to build as opposed to expanding it out, so that you can kind of specialize what each one's doing, so you can maximize the cacheability that comes from those each individual ones.
Josh, to wrap it up.
So my answer is module, 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 more modules. That is by far the best, most productive thing we've been able to do. But it has to be independent modules. If you make two modules depend on each other, you've undone any good work that you did. The other trick that I recently just learned was making sure all of your JDK instances are the same one. So Android Studio, anything in terminal points to the same one. That actually saved me a bunch of time, and the embedded version coming with Android Studio.
All great answers. Let's see what the audience thinks. All right. We got Josh on the board.
Huzzah.
You had him with module, right? All right. Next one. What static code analysis tools do you have integrated into your CI builds, and why? What do you like? What have you seen? Right? Yeah. Emma, you're up first.
Well, we use pretty much all the standard tools such as detekt, lint, and we fail the build if any violation is encountered. To make sure we don't have to wait for a PR to fail on the CI, we always run code analysis tools in a local Gradle task prior to opening a PR. And we also use diffuse when we upgrade dependencies, because we want to monitor all the 3D party libraries and their changes, dependency changes brought in by each increment. And we're also looking into Sonar Cube because it looks out for duplicated code and also code vulnerabilities.
Danny, you're up next. What are you all using on your apps?
Right now, we use Sonar and we use lint. We use Veracode for a lot of those stat analysis. A lot of them are breaking for our builds. We do use Android lint, and we have our own custom lint, which is probably my favorite one out of all of them. We go in and create different rules for things that developers have done in the past and just start breaking builds because they've started to do it. One of my favorite ones we added in was not being able to have a test with the word failed in it, because it was driving us absolutely insane to try and find things from the CLI with the word failed in it.
Super cool. Love that. All right. Next, Joshua, what do you guys do?
We actually have many of the same: KT-lint, unit test, espresso test, sonar, which also runs detekt. We use Android lint with warnings as errors. And one of my other favorite ones, custom lint rules too. We do a couple of those, but we have another one that we custom built to check the PR context info. Is there a description of your change and why you're making it? Is there a linked Jira ticket? Because understanding why you're doing something is often as important as what.
Nice. Heath, to wrap it up, what are you all using?
Yeah, so we use lint for general Android issues, KT-lint for Kotlin formatting style. We fail on all lint errors, and we run KT-lint locally against PR diffs with a pre-push hook. We tried Sonar, but it had too many false positives for us. We also built custom linters for our own APIs, so our most valuable linter ensures that developers use one of our standard colors rather than a custom color literal.
All right. Great. Audience, whose answer did you learn from the most, or did you like the most? Time for you to vote. All right, we got Danny on the board. That custom tool, lint tool there. You had him with that. It's pretty neat, I must say. We got a four-way tie, folks. This is getting exciting. All right, next one. How do you assess application health in production? We got Danny up first.
One of our primary production health indicators is really a lot of times for us, the customer satisfaction and how they're actually that we do it, because a lot of the other underlying things when you get into server issues and slow performance within the app all surface themselves back out through the customer. And then we always just keep an active eye on a lot of that and react to it. We also have other synthetic monitoring tools that monitor on the server just to make sure we're getting good responses, but follow the customer and what they're coming, what we really use to facilitate that.
Emma, what about you all?
Well, we love using Crashlytics because it can be used even on pre-release builds that run on lower environments, something you can add with Android Vitals, for instance. So as you might know, some of the metrics are startup time, HTTP network request latency, and success rate. But a cool feature that we make use of is performance monitoring, that is collecting performance data on your app that can be achieved in two ways, either by creating our own custom traces, just with using add trace annotation on each method.
Heath, how do you guys do this?
So we send application events to AWS CloudWatch, where we have alarms connected to PagerDuty for our on-call engineers and dashboards accessible for all internal folks. Each engineer does a week of on-call every 10 weeks. We also use Firebase Crashlytics for crash detection, and we use Crashlytics properties in Google BigQuery to search through events and help discover ways to reproduce issues. And this is an issue near and dear to my heart. I've been spending the past really year working on application health and real-time visibility.
Well, you got some pretty cool stuff there. Thanks for sharing. Josh, to wrap it up, what are you all doing?
For us, our main tool is Dynatrace, and the reason we use that is so we can kind of see end-to-end what's happening. Anytime there's degraded performance, we'll have alerts and things pushed out, and we have a experience optimization team that is on call for that kind of situation. Our other thing too is ratings, store ratings, surveys that we push out to customers, and we look how many stars and what can we do to improve your experience.
I love it. The ratings part was super cool. All right, audience, whose answer did you like the most and did you learn something new from? Time for you to vote again. All right, Heath, they loved it. Yeah, I mean, all that time you spent obviously shows. All right, now we're at question number 6. It's getting hot. Do you require certain test coverage before merging PRs? It's an interesting one. Josh, you're up first.
Now, yes is the short answer to this, but I'm going to tell you something you've never heard today. This is not the one that you want to pay attention to. Mutation test coverage is the one you want to pay attention to. That's how you're going to assess the quality of your test. Does your unit test, actually catch bugs before they emerge? Yes or no? Mutation test is the way to tell that. That's something we're working really hard on putting into our CI system here at KP at the moment.
Okay, love it. Mutation tests. All right, Heath, what are you all doing?
So we do not require test coverage before merging PRs. In my experience, test coverage minimums encourage people to increase coverage numbers that are the easiest to increase rather than focusing on the most valuable tests. We use a mix of unit testing, automated UI testing, and manual UI testing with QA engineers. In general, we operate on a high level of trust that engineers know to test their features, whether it's through UI testing, manual QA scripts, or unit tests. And again, we have real-time monitoring, so if we start seeing things that are often broken, we can go fix them and add more testing there.
Nice. Interesting approach. Yeah. Cool. Emma, you're up next.
Well, we also don't fail the build based on test coverage. It's a bit of a waste of time to try to cover everything. So we don't have a requirement on it, but we do flag it up. We have a task that runs either locally and also on the CI that checks if you're bringing the code coverage down on your PR. This way it will be flagged up in case it needs your attention, but maybe it doesn't. And of course, exclusions are fine, fragments are hard to test, but view models are not. And also we try to avoid unnecessary assertions and have one test with just one purpose.
Nice. All right. And Danny, to wrap it up.
Yes, we do require a certain amount of coverage. It's not necessarily PR based. It's really just about the overall coverage from the overall code base. So if people are committing and not committing, it'll cover. We also have rules in there that based upon the pattern of the class path and things of that nature, they will get excluded fragments and other things that can't necessarily be unit test covered, but we'll try and pull that in through integration test coverage and aggregate that back out through sonar. But we find it to be a very important metric to keep growing and growing.
All right. Love it. All right, audience, you're up again. It's your turn to vote. Ooh, it's another tight one between Josh and Heath. Josh, you're up. Nice. All right, now we're into the lightning round. We're going to go through these super fast, 15 seconds. Is it okay if test code isn't as clean as production code? Heath, you're up first.
Test code should be as clean as production code, but clean test code means it should be easy to understand expected behavior of the code you're testing. Test code tends to get dirty when a lot of abstraction exists between the behavior entry point and the result under test. Ideally, behavior and the result can exist at the same level of abstraction, even if that means adding APIs only for testing.
All right, Emma, you're up next.
The same code styling rules and code guidelines should be applied to test cases as well, because it teaches discipline. And as a good practice, make sure you make data accessible to test and don't rely on reflection too much, because it is expensive. And always think if the test you're writing is valid. Don't create tests just for the sake of it.
Danny, you're up next.
Most certainly tests need to be as clean as your production code, if not cleaner. For me, it's really one of the key onboarding tools for a lot of your new engineers to really kind of see how your application works in all different places without having to go around and ask a bunch of people. They can have a lot of things right there in front of you.
And Josh, to wrap it up.
Well, for me, it doesn't have to be as clean as production code, but it does have to be relatively tidy, because somebody ultimately has to maintain it. They might have to change it if a requirement changes, so they need to be able to look at it and understand it and update it if needed.
Okay, it was a fast one. Thanks all for concise answers. Audience, your turn to vote. Is that Heath again? Heath again. Nice. All right. Last but not least, final question. Where do you execute integration tests for CI, in-house device farm, Firebase test lab? What's everyone doing? Let's take it from the top. We'll go Danny first.
We are currently using Mac Stadium as our source for doing all of our integration testing. We farm it out. We have agents that we use that we subdivide out for the different things: automation, integration, unit test, building, etc. And that's where we do most of everything.
Nice. Emma, you're up next.
Well, I've used all the solutions so far, even in the in-house device farm when I handle Nokia devices, which makes total sense when you're working with prototypes and you have everything under a key. But now we're using AWS device farm. And the problem is that the more people access the allocated devices, the more you're going to have to wait for a free slot.
And Heath.
We've been doing CI integration tests for 4 years at Twitch. We started with emulators, and we still use emulators for PR verification and nightly test runs. Next, we built a small in-house device farm where we found it too costly to manage, 3 device farm with 2 private devices to ensure consistent test runs.
Thanks for fitting it in 15 seconds. And Josh, to wrap it up. It's hard.
For us, we actually do in-house emulators as well. We have to be very careful with PHI data. It's important keeping that stuff local. Where sometimes we'll do Perfecto as well, much to my dislike, but mainly in-house.
Great answers, folks. Let's see what audience liked the most out of what you had to say. Heath again, another tight race. Everybody gave great answers. Heath, you're the winner on this round. Your 15 seconds of fame, Heath. What do you got for us?
Twitch is hiring, twitch.tv/jobs. Also, Gradle Enterprise has been really great for us. It definitely helped us improve our build times, our build cacheability, and build visibility. We've expanded our Android build engineering team now. I've got another person on the team, and he's way better at Gradle than I am. And so I'm super glad to have him on the team. Jan is his name.
We're going to have to get Jan on the show. Thanks, everyone, for and participants, attendees, everybody watching on the live stream. We have more coming. We're doing a little event on predictive test selection and more cool webcasts from the Gradle team. Our next kind of lowdown event, I think, is going to be with the Micronaut project folks in May, and then in June we're talking with the Uber mobile and back-end productivity engineering team. So some great stuff coming. Check us out on Gradle.com, and thanks again to Josh, Heath, Emma, and Danny for taking time to participate and share your knowledge with the community. Thanks, and we'll see you all next time.